All right. Welcome back for Resistance Reads. I'm Michael Kilman.
I'm Matt Wellstrom. Slanchova, everybody. I haven't been day drinking yet.
Yet. He's just starting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're covering the Roger Zelazny's book Lord of Light, a 1967 sci-fi classic, won a Hugo Award, so it was a pretty big deal in its day, and I believe it tied with Dune.
You might have heard of it.
You might have heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made it into a movie or two.
Or
three.
3 attempts at the Dune. Never an attempt at a Zelazny movie, though.
Yeah, I feel like Roger Zelazny reminds me a lot of Georgette Hare, who wrote, like, period romances, like Jane Austen-style, like, novels. Never been adapted outside of, like, maybe the golden era of Hollywood. Maybe, like, a couple in the 30s. But just, like, people leaving this IP on the table. Like, we have IP just falling off of trees all the time right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they would rather tie in nostalgia, right?
Absolutely. Oh, you're totally right. That's where the money is. Nostalgia.
But yeah, so he's writing this book in the 1960s. Zelazny is kind of a classics literature major. He has a degree in English and then also a master's in I forget what branch of English it was. So he's a part of this kind of new wave science fiction. So you have, in the post-war period, you have writers like Isaac Asimov and Heinlein and others who who are essentially writing this kind of very rationalistic, scientific, we're now in the atomic age approach, and they use their political philosophies to kind of bludgeon the reader, specifically Heinlein. You read Heinlein books, you feel like you've been hit over the head with philosophy repeatedly.
And you're like, what philosophy was that? Like, you read Starship Troopers and you're like, okay, this guy definitely is, like, jingoistic. But is he also conservative? I'm not sure.
And then you read A Stranger in a Strange Land and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and you're like, is this the same political philosophy writer, or
what's going on?
But anyway, so that's this kind of very rationalistic, very, I want to say, almost like masculine style of sci-fi. And Zelazny is among the writers who kind of pull back from that and re-inject literary themes and approaches into science fiction in ways that we didn't really have until then, because everything was so pulpy with sci-fi.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's exceptions, of course, and you get like Jules Verne can be very literary in some styles, but we had kind of lost that flavor by the mid-20th century. So he's a part of the group of the new wave science fictions, which include like Ursula K. Le Guin and others who are really trying to get literary like feelings back in science fiction, but also really challenging kind of questions about what does power mean, what does identity do, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he got an MA in Elizabethan and Jacobean drama.
Yeah, super niche.
Very niche, but also very informative, and you're going to get a lot of good stuff in there, like Marlowe and Faust, and I feel like there's, I don't know, I think that the thing I really liked, I like this book a lot, by the way. I've never read any Roger Zelazny before, but reading this definitely felt like reading a religious text that was also, like, had an interesting protagonist, like, Sam is, like, what a dynamic lead character, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah. He was very interesting and very gray characters. So you have a lot of, and I think he's also kind of, that's the other thing about the new wave science fiction, is it kind of challenges this idea of like moral arcs and clear cut protagonists, and like takes that and says, no, people are complicated and messy. And, so the premise of the book is essentially that, we have a group of refugees from Earth who are from India, actually, and they've colonized this planet in not so great ways in some cases, which we'll talk about in the summary later. But they have decided that in order to protect the human species, they keep most of them living in like essentially medieval Indian times.
Yeah,
before
ghettos.
Ghettos, and they have a very strict class system. And the founders of this planet, the first ones, most of them, but not all, but most of them have taken the form of gods, specifically the Hindu deities. And the main character, Sam, has taken the form of the Buddha to kind of challenge that kind of power, because he's a part of a group called the accelerationists, and the accelerationists believe that like we have all this incredible technology and knowledge, why do we not spread it equally across humanity rather than hoarding it for a few people?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the premise of the book. But historically, I mean, I think also a lot of things that are going on is this is 67. So there's a lot of civil rights movements going on. There's decolonial movements going on. There's the infusion of Eastern mythology and philosophy into the West beginning in the 1950s and really peaking in the mid 60s. And then really just kind of staying a part of like the whole New Age religion tradition. And also, of course, you have like Suzuki Roshi, you have the 16th Karmapa. These people are all bringing these teachings kind of over to the United States, specifically of Buddhism. So you're getting a lot of that. And the other cool thing about Zelazny, if you guys can't tell, I'm like a huge sci-fi nerd. I'm the sci-fi nerd. You're more of the classic literature nerd. More specifically, crap, I lost my train of thought.
The cool thing about Zelazny.
Oh, the cool thing about Zelazny is that all of his books are based on some sort of mythology. And they're different mythologies. You have a book on Egyptian mythology. You have ones on Greek. This one is on Hindu mythology. You have Native American mythology. You have all kinds of different myth structures and systems that he uses across his books to really kind of ask really interesting questions about life and philosophy and like how different myth systems, he's getting away from that kind of the perennialism that was going in the 1960s where, oh, everyone just believes in the same things, they just have different names for it. That's just like the approach to religion that, that's kind of very nestled deeply into the New Age thing. It's, as an anthropologist, it's not true, by the way. There are many religions who are very different from anything that we could think of, and people like Joseph Campbell did a huge disservice to mythology.
He also did a huge disservice to script writing or screenplay writing.
Yeah, he did.
He set the mold that Hollywood has. They took up in the 1970s and have not let go of since. The hero's journey, if you guys are wondering what we're talking about,
which isn't factually correct, and Campbell actually, so Campbell had 17 criteria for the hero's journey, and there's not a single story that he analyzed that fits all 17 criteria.
Sure.
And there's several stories he included with the hero with 1,000 faces that only fit 2 criteria, which was his minimum. And you're like, if it only fits 2 criteria, then what are you actually doing?
Yeah, what's the pattern?
He's actually just creating a broad enough brush that he can say all human mythology fits into this.
And it comes from, what did he call it? It was like it's like the human unconsciousness or something like that.
Well, he's drawing on Jung. And Jung, Man and His Symbols, which I read that one ages ago. Jung also did a huge disservice to psychology. In fact, his whole archetype thing has been largely disproven. It doesn't exist the world over, but you'll still see people who love Jung and Jungian psychiatrists, and they're trying to use... Jung is fine if you're only dealing with people who are strictly grown up in Western cultures, but the second you get to deal with anyone who has a non-Western background...
Are you saying that other cultures are different?
And
that's okay?
That's okay, yeah. But actually with Hinduism, Jung really does a lot of cherry picking and ignores some of the deeper mythological structures. He kind of really culturally appropriates to fit his model. He's like, I'm going to take this idea and reimagine it so it fits what I think the world looks like. It's a very... 19th
century way of thinking.
Yeah, late 19th, early 20th century. And then Campbell took that ball and just really ran with it. And it's, again, there's nothing wrong with like the hero's journey exactly, but it's like been done to death.
It's, to be honest, I never need to see another a movie origin story in my life. Like,
another reluctant hero.
Another reluctant hero
who has to go to the land of the dead.
And then his mentor dies. You guys, it's so sad.
It was really funny.
His mentor's dead now.
It's really funny. After I read the fifth Harry Potter book, like way when they were first coming out, I'm reading them as they're coming out, right? And my brother's like, "What are your theories for the sixth book?" And I was like, "Well, first of all, it's the sixth book, which getting close to the end, that means Dumbledore has to die. Has to, because that's she's very clearly following the hero's journey with Harry. Every book is just another hero's journey.
Oh, she hasn't closed that tab in fucking 7 years,
right?
You know?
So there's like that, and then Harry has to die in some way between the sixth and seventh book, and of course both things happen.
Yeah.
So
your brother was like, "Which?"
Yeah, he was like, "How did you know all that?" And I was like, "Because I've read Joseph Campbell and knows what she's doing." So that's kind of like the environment that Zelazny's stepping into. He's writing something that, he's kind of critiquing a lot of the ideas of what came before in science fiction. He's also very much kind of pushing back against the idea that science fiction can't be literary.
Right.
And if you've been following our show, in fact, that like we've read 7 literary classics that are also science fiction.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
1984 is a great example.
Frankenstein.
Yep, Frankenstein, and then of course like V for Vendetta is pretty literary too.
Pretty literary and definitely sci-fi.
Yep. So there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I would also argue that what the hell's the book that we read with by R.F. Kuhn? Babel.
Oh,
Babel.
Ooh.
Very literary. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's
a
sci-fi about literature.
I also definitely felt some like vibes of Paradise Lost. Kind of when I was reading Paradise Lost, I was thinking of Lord of Light, which is why I was like, we should read Lord of Light.
You're like, wait a minute, I remembered a great book.
Yeah. So let's get into the synopsis. Also Zelazny actually didn't live very long. He died in his mid-50s of cancer. And another thing, like Matt experienced this, with the exception of the Chronicles of Amber, it's very difficult to find copies.
I couldn't
Zelazny's
find
work.
a copy that I could just read with my own eyes.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah, Lord of Light is not an easy book to get a hold of physically. You can find audiobooks.
It was fine. The audiobook version was fine. I would say it's just hard to follow if you're not used to the Hindu pantheon, to like remember who is who, because they all go by a lot of different names and are often referred to by their titles, which was actually that was easiest when that was happening.
Well, and it's also, I mean, deities are incarnations of other deities, and like the joke in Hinduism is depending on who you're talking to and at what time, there's either no gods or there's a million gods, or there's 3 gods or there's a dozen gods. It's just like, and Hinduism is not like Hinduism and Buddhism. We should put into context here, because if they're not like Christianity, Judaism or Islam, where they have one definitive text and maybe a few apocryphal things that some people incorporate and some people do not. They there are thousands upon thousands of texts in both Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism, by the way. People think of the Tao Te Ching as like one unified text, but there are thousands of treatises in all 3 of these kind of religions. And in part, that's because of India's structure. Like, if you're reading even the Bhagavad Gita, there's like 15, 16 different major versions of the Bhagavad Gita.
That's crazy.
So, like, and they're not, like, none of them are considered the official original version. We do have, like, the first version recorded, but even by then, the stories were so distributed, because India has always been a very densely populated place.
Yeah.
And it has always been a very geographically large place. And so, it's as Gandhi would say, it's a land of 10,000 villages.
Yes.
And so each village has their patron deities. They have the different areas that they're focused on. And so like they're like, the Mahabharata is like this really interesting epic that gets written across, centuries of different editions. It's almost like the temples of a temple of Karnak in ancient Egypt, where it's not built by one person, but it's contributed to by many people over many generations.
Ooh.
And so, so they're actually writing as these events are kind of happening in some cases with the Mahabharata, but whether or not they're factual or not, it's you don't know because it's people tend to exaggerate.
Sure.
All the storytellers exaggerate, right?
Yeah.
So that's again some additional context. So if you like, and by the way, I do have some Zelazny books, and I usually find them at thrift stores.
Okay.
That's usually where, like, I have, what is it? What is that one about dreams? Dreamland or something? That's about Egyptian mythology. That one is, what the hell was it called? Mad World, Dreamland, something? Forgive me, I forget. But,
I can find it.
but anyway, so, like, I usually find them in thrift stores and, like, bookstores that, like, have just random old books because he is really hard to find.
Dream Master?
Dream Master, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
And the film Dreamscape was based on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so one of his books was made into a movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Dream Master is very interesting. So, back to Lord of Light. So chapter 1. So this book is broken into 7 chapters. They're essentially like 7 books because they're very long chapters. So Yama, who is the god of death, Ratri, who's the goddess of night, and Tak, who is kind of like this. He's a human, but he's been forcibly reincarnated into an ape's body. They bring back Sam. Sam, who is essentially the Buddha, the Mahasamatman. He cuts out the prefix for that title and the suffix for that title and just goes by Sam. That's like his whole thing.
AKA Siddhartha.
AKA Siddhartha.
You might have heard of Siddhartha.
Right.
He went to high school in the United States.
So his consciousness, Yama, Ratri, and Tak bring Sam back into a body. His consciousness has been scattered across the magnetosphere of the planet because the people portraying the Hindu deities did not want to make a martyr of him after his pretty much successful attempt at an uprising, and we'll get to that towards the end. But he basically recruits a whole bunch of different creatures and stuff, but that's like a part of the book, to host this uprising and essentially free people from the tyranny of these gods, which are like essentially modern day tech bros in that they have this advanced, fantastic technology. They have spaceships. They have the ability to transfer their consciousness into other bodies. Like, honestly, this story is kind of like the tech bro dream in a lot of ways.
God, you're totally right.
Yeah. So anyway,
because they do want to be seen as gods.
Right. They want to be seen as gods, and so they're these deities. Some of them do have like superpowers. They have kind of an aspect to them.
They have 2 things. They've got an aspect and they've got a attunement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the attunement is technological, but their aspect is something that like they have like these natural powers, and it's never really explained exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, for example, can control like thought and matter and energy to some degree with his mind.
Like he has like an electromagnetic powers, which kind of work like Magneto's powers, which is like always everything's a little bit magnetic or a little bit energy based, so you can kind of like thoughts are
to agree
like that.
To agree, yeah. And then some of them have aspect of the fire. They can kind of control fire. Yama, the god of death, has the death glare. So does Kali. Kali is also an important character. They can look at you and kill you just by looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
So but it doesn't work on like other gods, but they can do it to a lot of people. So they didn't want to make a martyr of him, so Sam needs to get back into being human. And the story, the timeline is like the first chapter and the final chapter are the present day, and everything else is like a flashback to the uprising. But Sam is like, he's been actually, and is the closest to nirvana you could possibly achieve. His consciousness was like scattered around the magnetosphere, and he was like one with everything. Mm-hmm. So he actually really was in kind of a science fiction version of nirvana, and they pull him back, and his first thought is like, why the hell did you do that? Why would you bring me back here? Like, I was like in bliss. I was everything. I was fully aware of everything that was going on, and I could see the whole universe through my consciousness. And I was
reminded
like,
me of Buffy in the first episode of season 6, episode 1, where she's brought back, and she was, she dies at the end of season 5, sacrifices herself for her sister, and all of her friends think she must be in hell. Like because she like dove down into this. It was, they're like, oh, she's probably in some demon realm. We got to get her out. They bring her back, and for a couple episodes, they're like, why is Buffy being so weird? And they like finally get her to talk about it. She's like, I was in heaven. Everything was perfect. Like I was there. I was there with my mom, and like everything was great and pure and blissful.
Yeah.
And you brought me back, and now I'm in hell.
Yeah. Yeah, hell is other people who's
it was that fucking Nietzsche or something like that. No, it was the guy who wrote No Exit. Dang.
Oh. Anyway,
shame on me.
So Sam, they basically throw like prostitutes at him and like good food and like good music, and they try to get him all like back and like experience all the worldly pleasures to kind of get him back into his body. One day he goes out to the woods, and Tak, he's like an ape man, finds him with the Rakasha. The Rakasha are like the previous indigenous people here who had basically, before humans even arrived, had shed their bodies and become kind of energy beings, but they're considered demons. They love gambling, and they love contracts. And
I love that.
They're very like the djinn almost.
Yeah, it really reminded me of like, I thought that was a great take on demons, that their only thing that they love is making deals, and like being bound by their word, Yeah. And I love that it came from gambling, because you can't gamble with people if people don't trust you enough to like pay up when you've lost.
Right.
Also, hell is other people. That was Sartre.
Okay. Yeah. So then a monk, but like Tak sees this thing, and there's like lightning striking, and it's this really bizarre experience. And then they kind of like go back, and Yama is kind of explaining a little bit about who the Rakasha are, which we'll get into a little bit more later too. But then a monk named Aram appears and inquires like, oh, I'm a traveling mystic, and I just take on whatever teachings I can, which is actually pretty classical Hinduism. You travel from village to village to try to find knowledge and wisdom from different gurus and all this stuff. So it's like a pretty common one, and they call him the honored one, because it takes quite a person to do this sort of thing. If you want a Buddhist version of this, there's a book called In Love with the World, and it's about a modern Buddhist teacher, a Rinpoche, who takes this and like almost dies because like he gets dysentery, and it's a very actually dangerous thing. Like when people go and they have these pilgrimage, they are really literally risking their death, and that's part of like the sacredness of it, is that you have surrendered your life completely to the path. But like he's keeps pushing all the local monks, and like he's very clearly trying to find out because to bring Sam back, there's a surge of energy, so he has to like bring him. The other gods might be getting suspicious. So Yama shows up because this guy keeps pressing the monks and asking them questions.
I sure would love to meet your best teacher you've got around here.
Right, exactly.
Nothing suspicious.
And Yama immediately goes, why did you turn your name backwards, Mara? And Mara, if you don't know, is the Lord of Illusion. People, this is a little bit of a thing of mine. People call in Buddhism Mara the devil, and that is just not true. Like he's not a devil. He's just the illusions of life. Like it's not like he's not. And in fact, after after the Buddha overcomes Mara, the Buddha teaches Mara, which is actually kind of a thing. Buddha teaches all the Hindu deities, which is a whole other thing. But like people misunderstand Mara as like the equivalent of Satan.
Because Satan's the Lord of Lies or something like that? Okay,
right.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
sense.
I have had numerous arguments at parties with people who are like, oh, Mara is no, Mara is not the devil. It's a whole different framework. But Yama is like, get the hell out of here, Mara. And Mara is like, what is basically trying to figure out what is actually really happening here. So Yama kills him. He tries to throw up illusions, but it's the god of death, and he's just like, and like really, Yama is like really a badass,
smokes that fool. Yeah,
he smokes a lot of people.
Yeah.
So after Mara dies, Sam gives a Buddhist teaching to the monks to help them make them more pliable for Yama's kind of mental probes and stuff, to alter their memories to kind of cover their tracks, because they have these powerful, basically mind-reading technologies that they use to employ to anybody when they're getting reincarnated.
To make sure you're
in support of the Hindu deities.
Yeah.
I mean, it is... Yeah.
Like, you like the caste system, right? Yeah, I do. I love it. I love the caste system.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not really earnest, and they, make you be like an animal or something for a few generations, or kill you in some place, give you the real death, they call it. So then they cover their tracks, and they move on to Ratri's palace. And then you don't really come back to the present until the end of the book. So then the rest is kind of a flashback. And in this flashback, Sam is, at this point in his timeline, he's kind of gotten older. He's been around for many generations. You kind of get a little background to what was going on before the rebellion. And that he is just really dissatisfied with the fact that, like, they keep quashing any scientific developments, these Hindu deities. He talks about at least 3 times there was a new printing press invented, and the gods came down and smoted everybody who had any involvement or any knowledge of it.
Their reasoning was like, well, it wasn't a real invention. They were just remembering a printing press out of legend, and that's not real progress. Meanwhile, they've got these, like, coin-operated machines that deliver prayers to the gods.
It's very much... it delivers prayer to the gods, and that's weighed against your sins to decide. So you can basically pay to get a better... It's very much like when in Catholicism, one of actually...
it's like the tithing.
Yeah, the tithing thing. One of Martin Luther's real sincere critiques about the Catholic Church was like, people are paying to get their sins forgiven.
Was it like buy forgiveness or something?
Yeah,
like that?
You could buy forgiveness. So that's kind of going on here. They have like these coin slot machines that look like something out of a casino.
It's so fun.
That like glow and make noises and all kinds of stuff. And like Sam talks about how he sees like these people standing in long lines, and this one guy's like pulling the lever and putting coins in, and his face is like overjoyed with it when he gets a good result and all this other stuff. So they have very much like this kind of predatory system for ensuring that only people will be raised up in power and caste system who adhere to their will and stuff. And he's fed up with this. He really, he's a believer that, people should be given every chance and every opportunity to kind of, thrive in life. So he's kind of searching around for this old friend of his, another one of the first members of the colony. And I mentioned, so Earth is basically destroyed and they're refugees. So they're like here on this planet with like no other options really. So he finds this old friend, and he's talking to him about this new medical scanning technology that has been developed over the last 50 years. And really it's Yama, the god of death, who developed all these incredible technologies that really enhance the god's power.
It's a real commentary on the military-industrial complex, man.
It really absolutely is. So Sam is like... So then Sam goes to meet with Brahma because they all know Sam, and that Sam is like considered a great horticulturalist, and they ask, you should be working for us and being a part of our team. And but he kind of insults Brahma, who turns out was a woman named Madeline among the first the things. So your gender really, he does kind of preserve this idea in Hinduism that the best gender to be is like basically an upper class male. That's the best position to be, a Brahmin caste male in society.
What a unique idea.
Yeah. So they but we learn that the process of that the gods don't believe that the humans, Brahma basically says they're not ready for advanced technology, they'll destroy themselves. And I think there's a little bit of an implication or subtext here that maybe it was technology that had destroyed Earth, and so they're trying to be protectionist almost.
I thought it was just self-interest, but I like that.
I think that's their justification.
Okay.
Yeah. So he tricks this other guy named Deshaun and has him pretend to be Siddhartha and sends him to the Masters of Karma, which are just like these basically people who run the reincarnation mind transfer machines.
Yeah,
they like grow you a body and then
the Apple Store for the gods.
Yeah,
you know?
right. They grow you a body and then they put you into a new. They put your consciousness into a new body, which is like tech bro dream, right?
Oh God, absolutely. They can't wait for that shit.
I mean, to be quite honest, I think that would be pretty cool technology
Whoa,
too. But you know how it would go.
They're not going to share it with us.
You know how it would go. It's like life extension technology. You know how that would go. So he shows up and shows up to the Masters of Karma and demands a real body, and then they fight them, and then.
Oh yeah, the gods give when Siddhartha pulls the switcheroo, they give the guy that he sends in there to get reincarnated as the new Siddhartha, they give him an epileptic body.
Right, so he's like going to be sick and unable to really function.
Yeah.
Because they kind of...
The thing about Siddhartha is he's a genius, you know? He's like, he's a trickster.
Yeah, he is kind of in a lot of ways, which many gurus are tricksters, to get you to think out the box, right? Exactly. So this, of course, sets off like a whole process where Kali sends one of her most powerful assassins named Riled after him to kill Sam. But Riled goes through this terrible swamp and ends up getting really sick on the way to go assassinate Sam. Sam knows right away who he is. He figures it out really quick. And he actually nurses him back to health. And he's like, you know who I am. You know what I'm here to do. And he's like, yeah. He's like, so what are you going to do? You nurse me back to health. Are you just going to kill me? What are you going to do? He's like, no. He's like, I'm not going to do anything. Like, it's against my beliefs. It's against my traditions. Because Sam is a pacifist. At least in this regard. He, he's not able to be a pacifist later, but that's later. So Riled then stays, like Riled has nowhere to go because he's failed Kali, so if he goes back to Kali, he'll be dying the real death. He won't be given a new body. Yeah. He will have failed Kali because he feels he owes Sam his life, so he says, well, life for a life. I can't kill you since you saved my life. That just wouldn't be right. So, but Riled is just like sitting around listening, and he asks Sam, hey, can I be one of your monks? And Sam's like, sure, you can be one of the monks. And Riled actually achieves real enlightenment over the course of the next couple of years. Yeah. And becomes a powerful teacher alongside Sam, and they name him the Sugata. Which is, I think, also just like similar to like Buddha. Buddha's like awakened, and Sugata is like he would have achieved enlightenment. Yeah. And then Yama discovers that this has happened, and he flies to go and take care of the problem himself. And Riled confronts Yama to stop him from killing Sam. And Riled, or rather Sugata now, doesn't believe in killing anymore, but he takes up arms against Yama to stop him. Yama wins, but barely. Yeah, he barely defeats him.
No one in all of his generations, in all of his regenerations, has ever come that close.
Right. So Yama goes to the temple and finds Sam and finds all the monks dressed identically, and he can't tell them apart. So he sits and waits, and Sam kind of forces him into a kind of a dream state where he has to fight 4 regions from the north, east, south, and west. Yama defeats 3 easily, but the 4th throws up a device that makes the trees and grass ensnare them. Yama curses him and wakes up and then finds Sam just sitting there. And he says he's there to kill him. And Sam says,
if you're here to kill the Buddha, you already did,
You already did. Because he says Riled was the real Buddha. He's like, I am a fake. You all know I'm a fake.
Yeah, he believed it, though.
But he didn't just believe it, he truly embodied it, and you already killed him. Yeah. And as they discuss, Sam is like using his own powers to alter the electromagnetic spectrum or whatever with his mind. And he basically takes the floor that Yama is standing on and turns it into quicksand. And he then escapes. Yama's like cursing his name as he's running away. Then the next chapter, Sam goes to hell to deal with the Rakasha, who Sam actually imprisoned in the first place. When they first get to the planet, the Rakasha just start killing humans.
They're the native inhabitants of the planet, but they're also energy beings.
Right. So they just start
draining the life force.
They just start showing up, and they don't like the humans much, so they just start draining their life. So Sam, along with others, and specifically Kali, take them on, and Sam actually is one of the few people who can't be possessed by these deities. They had tried many times because they can possess you and everything, and they possessed many people and caused a lot of death and destruction. So he manages to find a way to bind them in a place called the Hell Well. So he goes down into this Hell Well and he meets the leader of them, Taraga, and asks him to kind of scout the heavens, or scout basically the city of the gods in exchange for his freedom. And Taraga is like hesitant, and he's like, well, if I do this, what about the rest of my people? And he's like, well, we'll let you free so you can fight alongside us, because we need to overthrow the gods. They have become, basically, they're not willing to ever give up their power. And Sam wants to free them from the oppression of their technology and their ideology. So Tarragoth finds a weakness in the defenses of heaven and returns to Sam, and Sam releases others of the Rakasha, but not all of them at first. Then Tarraga possesses Sam in his sleep and takes control, because apparently he's the most powerful and he's able to draw on the power of the others. Yeah. He's able to overcome Sam's defenses.
Yeah, with their powers combined, they are the Buddha.
But then he basically takes him back to the surface world and has him live through all these pleasures. Sam is only kind of vaguely aware of what's going on, but over time he becomes more and more conscious again, kind of taking back his identity. And is gradually awaking. And it's then after the third assassination attempt of his retinue that he kind of fully awakens. And he tries to take his body back. But Tarragoth calls on his fellow demons again to subdue Sam. And it works. But before he does that, Sam mentions the curse of the Buddha. That you are forever changed once you encounter the ideas, and you're forever changed just for being human in general. And they're having a very different experience of their consciousness than they had ever before when they were at least in a very long time.
I was going to say, because they used to wear bodies.
They used to wear bodies, but they've been out of bodies for countless time, right? So time passes, and Tarraga begs the Buddha to lift the curse of the Buddha because he feels no joy in anything anymore.
None of that sex, none of that imbibing, none of that gambling. None of it felt good anymore.
Yeah.
Because he had guilt now.
And I want to put a pin in that and talk about that after, because there's a whole passage of this book that's one of my favorite passages of the book.
It was super good.
Then the Lord of Flame arrives, Agni. And Tarraga wants to challenge him. Sam does not. Tarraga forces the confrontation, and the whole castle is just gone, destroyed. And they flee back into the Hell Well.
Yeah, dude had a fire wand,
Yeah, he had a fire wand made by Yama, but incredibly powerful. It amplified Agni's already potent affinities with fire. And they flee back into this, and then Shiva, Kali, Yama, and Agni come in a ship to attack the Hell Well. Tarraga and Sam hide deep in the earth for a while, and though the battle is joined, they wait to see the outcome. It's clear that the Rakasha are losing, and they decide to try and steal the ship under the nose of the attackers. They get into the ship, and they're starting it up. Sam can't get it to start. He's like, I haven't flown a ship like this in a long time. Agni gets to the ship, but Sam uses his own power to stop his use of the flame wand. He uses his mental powers. He knocks out Agni and kills him. But Yama and Kali arrive and stop the escape. Tarraga flees the body. Yama kind of strikes him and knocks him out. And he thinks he kills him, but he's not sure. And at Sam's instruction, Tarraga flees and continues the work of what they're doing. And Sam is captured. Next chapter, Kali makes an offer to Sam now that he's captured. They'd once been lovers during this conquest of the world. Kali offers to join his philosophy, which is accelerationism, the idea that we should get everyone the super technology and good living conditions. He tells her no. They end up making love, even with all of her anger. Like maybe some hate sex there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, she was really. Oh man, she's a piece of work. Bro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She like takes the form of animals and kills people and
yeah,
goes
she's like a
hunting.
snow
And,
leopard. At
yeah, all kinds of
start of that
stuff.
chapter.
Um,
Sounded sick.
However, the gods don't know what to do with Sam, and there's a long conversation about it. Sam plots his escape with this kind of powerful item that it would accelerate his power that Yama had made. He gets it, but still fails escape. It turns out that it was like a forger or a fake version of it.
Yeah.
Yama had put like it still works, but it doesn't have as much power. Kali asked for Sam's death / banishment as a wedding present. They're getting married, and there's this scene where Sam is like talking to a bird, and then the Kali just they kill him.
Yeah.
And a series of attempts at uprisings begin and are put down. Just like all these little like mini uprisings that are happening all over the place, and technology is trying to being developed again. And then chapter 6, Brahma mysteriously dies of poison, and a successor is considered. Kali is put up for the role. But Yama now is married to Kali, and they have this big long celebration. But but taking on the form of Brahma means he will be a man, and on top of being a man, it will break their wedding vows, so they can't really be married again. So Yama kind of protests it, but Kali's like, "I want the power," and takes it. Then someone kills Shiva. And if you guys don't know, the 3 most important Hindu deities, of which almost every other deity emerges from, is Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Right, so like the 3: creation, preservation, and destruction. And most other deities in the Hindu pantheon spring from them specifically. But someone has killed Shiva. Agni decides to take up the new Agni decides to take up Shiva's mantle. And if someone dies as a god, they just like put another god in place.
Yeah, they just replace them.
They replace him with someone else who
they just go to Indeed and they're like, that's a good candidate.
Yeah, something like that. And the city they start hearing words of the city of Keenset starts going through its own kind of renaissance, and the gods are talking about the fact that they need to suppress it. Kubara, which is another god, he discovers the truth that Sam had actually survived execution by swapping his new ability gained from what's his name?
Oh boy, the demon. Right?
The demon,
yeah.
The demon king. And so he infused part of like that ability to transfer your consciousness with energy to Sam, kind of inadvertently, because they had been in contact and possessed him for so long.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't intentional.
It wasn't intentional, yeah. So Kubara and Sam like make a deal that whoever can best the other in battle will get their wishes.
Dude, it's a battle called an Irish knockdown.
It's like
it's the coolest thing ever. I'm sorry.
It's almost like a slap bet. Almost.
Yeah, except it's with punching.
Or Rochambeau, yeah.
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 Rochambeau, but you're punching in the face instead of the
right. So they are punching each other in the face. If Kubara wins,
and Sam's in this like sexy young body, so he's like, I got this.
Yeah. He had transferred to like a really strong live body. Mm-hmm. Kubara is a big overweight dude who's on the older side and preparing to transfer into a new body. At this
it just
point.
felt to me like Matt Murdock versus the Kingpin, you know?
Yeah.
I got this. Look how yoked I am. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not fat.
Kubara just punches the shit out of it. But like the wager was that if Kubara wins, Sam would flee and go into hiding, and and gather his own forces, because Kubara actually is kind of oriented towards science. He leans towards Sam's ideas, and if not, Sam will kill as many of the gods as he can and leave it at that, right?
Yeah, Sam's plan is kind of dumb, actually.
Yeah. I think Sam's just fed up and exhausted.
Yeah, he wants to go back to heaven.
But Kubara wins,
really?
And they escape on Garuda, which is like the mythical bird of Vishnu. And Yama discovers the plot as they're trying to flee, but Ratri kind of like uses her own abilities to kind of help them escape. And they all flee to the city of Keenset, and that becomes the key battleground. Sam, Ratri, Kubara prepare the city for battle, and then the Rakasha and their every Rakasha remaining join them, and they bring more allies, including Nariti, which is another one of the first ones, but is a fundamentalist Christian actually, and has their own ends. They want to unseat the gods for a very different reason, to kind of spread Christianity around.
Right. Enemy of my enemy.
It's the enemy, my enemy. But they prepare the city for battle. Taraka tries to kill Yama, but Yama shows up and says he switched sides because he feels betrayed by Kali. And he does not like accelerationism, but he knows that it's the one force that will oppose heaven, and he's starting to lean towards Sam's side and saying this isn't what we're doing isn't good. And he'll fight and destroy anyone except for Brahma, which is Kali. Kali's taken on Brahma's mantle in full now. Kubara is spreading knowledge and technology in preparation for the battle and hoping that some will escape and spread the knowledge ultimately to oppose the gods. The battle goes very poorly for Sam and his allies, and the city of Keenset is completely obliterated. Sam, Ratri, and Yama are captured. Ratri is punished, and this is where we meet her at the beginning. She's forced to wear kind of a late middle-aged, sort of unattractive mortal body forever. That's like her punishment. And she was considered like not necessarily one of like, she was kind of wrapped up in the rebellion, so they didn't kill her. They were going to kill Yama, but he apparently built a device that would allow him to swap new bodies the moment he presses a button. So he just like escaped prison by pressing the button and taking on a new body. And Sam is then transmigrated into the atmosphere because they realize if they kill him, they'll make him martyr. If they don't kill him, they'll then they will.
He's trouble.
He's trouble.
Yeah.
So they have to get rid of him somehow. Kubara, however, is never found, and the Rakasha are still free, and Nariti is still at large as well. And this begins kind of a scientific revolution of sorts, because the gods have lost a lot of their power to suppress things. And I think they're kind of, even though they won the battle, like it's very clear that they have been, a lot of their power and resources have been destroyed.
Yeah, throughout the book, at least, after the first chapter, Sam is talking about how the gods are like more powerful than ever.
Right.
They're growing in power. And I think it's really just like their kind of background ability to maintain the status quo is making it seem like they're more and more powerful. But
yeah, actually
it's all kind of a precarious balance.
Right. Well, it's the problem of control that Foucault talks about, that every society has, every major system of power has the same problem. They have to maintain that power at the lowest possible cost. Mm-hmm. This battle costs them so much.
Yeah.
So then it's on to the final chapter. In the time that Sam has been transmigrated, Yama's been inventing new things. The Rakasha have been building their power. Nariti has been building his power. The scientific revolution has proceeded at a pace. Like, there's now new machines and, showing up everywhere. They've rediscovered like the microscopes and telescopes, and they're starting to rediscover like, science that had been, kind of forced out. So Sam is now like in position to lead this uprising, and he's like, why did you guys bring me back? You guys seems like you had it really under control. And he's like, well, we needed your strategy essentially to kind of to create the finishing blow, because now Yama's like, we have two problems. Nariti has become really powerful, and Nariti wants basically the same thing, but instead of a Hindu-based empire, he wants a Christian-based empire. So we have to figure out what to do about Nariti. And then Sam goes to talk to Taraka to convince him to to join the battle again. And Taraka agrees and says he'll tell Nariti these things, but Taraka has his own motivations and wants to kill Yama because he wants to fight the most powerful being there is, and Yama is still considered the most powerful, undefeatable kind of warrior.
I mean, he is death.
he is death, and he has like the genius to invent all the technologies to augment his ability to have death, right? So Sam kind of suspected he was going to be betrayed by Taraka, um, and so he actually decides that he should side with the forces of heaven. So he actually decide with Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu um, against Nariti because Nariti is now the bigger threat. On the agreement that they will allow accelerationism to continue, that they will allow things to continue to develop apace and no longer suppress the population. And they agree. They realize that they don't have the power to stop Nariti anymore, and they need Sam's allies in power, and so they do it. There's a big battle. Ganesha is killed, Indra is killed, Brahma, Kali is gravely injured. Yama kills Taraka actually like pretty easily. Like Taraka does not stand a chance, and very gravely injures Nariti, and Nariti dies in Sam's arms. Kubara finds Yama, who's guarding a young girl at the end of the book, who's mentally deficient from a bad transfer. It's almost certainly Kali.
Yeah.
She's like basically mentally incompetent. Like she can't really think straight. And he asks for help, but like they try, but there's not really anything they can do for her. Tak goes off on his own adventure. He finally incarnates as a human again, and pretty much everybody kind of goes off to live their best lives at this point, and Sam kind of fades into myth almost. He's still around, he's still giving teachings, but he kind of fades out. And Yama kind of does the same thing, leaving his daughter behind with everybody else, and she's like the only one who leaves flowers at his altar, and that's kind of how it ends. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting themes in this book. I mean, first of all, it's really about the control of technology and how you can, I mean, I don't know what year Arthur C. Clarke said that, advanced enough technology is basically akin to magic. Like, but it was somewhere around the 1960s. But that kind of
right?
that kind of lives in this book, that you have this pantheon that's a pantheon because they can continually reincarnate perpetually, because they can just transfer their mind to a god. Like Krishna, for example, I didn't mention him in the summary because he's really not that important, but he is one of the greater warriors, and he does join Sam's side at the end, and in the battle in chapter 6 before the kind of final battle. And Krishna is like, he like every 20 years swaps a body because he's kind of a lecherous party animal where he just sleeps with everybody and he drinks to excess, and he just like destroys his body, and he just swaps it like every 20 years doing whatever the fuck he wants, and seducing people.
This predates it actually.
Does it?
That's Clarke's third law, and it's 1973.
Okay.
Profiles from the future and inquiry into the limits of the possible.
I wonder if books like this inspired his thinking, because it's. I mean, Clarke has his own.
Yeah, no, Clarke was obviously a great thinker, but I mean, I think this is the demonstration of that theory. Like, I mean, this book perfectly demonstrates that theory,
right? And
it was written 10 years before.
Right.
Said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah. So there's that, and like I said, it's kind of like this book from the pantheon is like what the tech bros want.
The tech bros absolutely want a pantheon. They want to all be seen as gods, but they all want to kind of vie a little bit with each other for who is the head god.
Right.
Obviously, they love that shit.
Oh, yeah.
They're so competitive.
Yeah.
Bezos spends all his time getting so yoked, so swole, because he was like probably a little nerd in high school. And,
yeah, he's probably a little bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's obviously a little bitch, but like, he doesn't want anybody else to think that about him.
Right.
Musk just learned how to jump the other day and is so excited about it. And
what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just every time I think of Elon Musk now, I think of him jumping, like just like getting like 3 inches off the ground at that Trump rally.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
where he's just like so hyped to be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and Musk's whole personality.
He's mega black, man.
Yeah. And Musk's whole personality is like, let's colonize the world, the universe, and then let's also like get our brains transferred into new bodies. And
he wants that so bad.
Yeah, he does. Because I mean, it's oh god, totally different sci-fi series, The Expanse. The last 3 books in The Expanse is a guy who does actually figure out immortality, and he's like he's basically making himself into an emperor. And he figures out how to unlock the technology in ways that no one else does. So he like briefly becomes, and he realizes through this technology he become immortal, because he says he's like, the one problem all empires have is that the founder is mortal.
Yeah,
and they never last much long after the founder is gone.
Right, you might get a couple generations.
Right, if you're lucky, and but. So that's like the tech bro dream.
Yeah, because you're always gonna have a soft son. Like eventually, there's going to be like someone in the succession who is like not cutthroat enough. Who didn't have to like grind out this conquering business. Someone who's like likes books more than he likes fighting or something like that, and doesn't rule with an iron enough fist. And
or they're nepo babies.
It all falls apart. Yeah, they're not qualified in some way or another.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the fundamental problem when you look at the wealthy elite in really any country. You see these people who are like quote unquote self-made, where they had to quote claw their way to the top. It's just really them being as like immoral and cutthroat as possible, really.
Yeah.
But then like their kids come along, and their kids did not really have to strive or work for anything, so they're a bunch of spoiled little assholes.
Yeah.
And so either they could be in some way sometimes be very thoughtful individuals and be the book readers and like really consider, like dedicate themselves to philosophy and art, which is like, that's the good outcome, right?
Yeah.
The majority or the bad outcome is like they become like narcissistic little shitheads who think the whole world owes them something, and they're so deeply insecure. I mean, this is actually Elon Musk.
Yeah, right? Elon Musk, by the way, you guys, is a nepo baby.
He is. Like, he inherited a huge amount of money from his father, and he tried to pretend like that didn't happen, and his own father came out and was like, no, he got a lot of money from me.
Also, his father is so racist that he moved to he moved to South Africa when they started doing the apartheid.
Right.
He's like, oh shit, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to live in an all-white state in Africa.
Right. Yeah, an apartheid
and
state.
Exploit it, obviously, for gain.
This is a quote that Sam actually says about himself. The personal strengths and weaknesses of a leader are not a true indication of the merits of his cause.
Oh, yeah.
And that like, I mean, that made me think of a lot of famous activists and leaders, and like, we're dealing with the fallout of Caesar
that's
Chavez.
Why I just made that noise when you read that quote. I was like, oh, damn. Dude.
Yeah. And he's writing this in the 1960s.
Oh.
I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. was, generally a pretty good person, but he had a little bit of a problem with prostitutes.
Yeah, oh yeah. He didn't have a problem with them.
No, he didn't have a problem with them. He liked them too much. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So Gandhi had weird sex stuff going on.
And some racism.
And he initially, Gandhi did not like black people initially, but his experiences in South Africa over 20 years changed his mind.
That's true. Okay.
So he did change his mind. But Gandhi was also a victim of a child marriage. He was married when he was 10. So he got exposed to sex and sexuality at such an extremely young age that I think that really messed him up.
Probably.
Yeah, because he did some very not good things.
Yeah, Mother Teresa wasn't great though either. I mean, like, again, these are all great people in the like great men and women of history sense, but like, not nice people.
No,
in a lot of ways,
no, and there's actually a lot of famous Buddhist leaders, Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and the school up in Boulder here. they got caught doing some really unethical things. One of his direct students basically was like taking advantage of his position of power and sleeping with people and spread AIDS all around the community. And he
Whoa.
didn't discipline him, and you know there was kind of so there was a lot of controversy around that too. But he was also one of those key figures who brought really powerful and amazing teachings of Buddhism to the United States and really changed a lot of people's lives for the better. So it's kind of like, and Sam just embodies this so well.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Sam's likes to sleep with women. Sam definitely enjoys his power, but
Mhm.
he also wants the freedom and liberation of everybody in the face of these Hindu deities.
Yeah, I mean, Siddhartha is, he's a warlord,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he's also a Buddha,
Yeah.
complicated guy.
Right, right, and he most of his progress is actually created through pacifist movements,
Mhm.
not through violence. It's not until he realizes that he's not going to have a choice that he takes up arms, and that's really when he has to kill the masters of karma, who are imposing this kind of regime of reincarnation under the approval of the deities. So it's like this interesting question of the Puritanism of heroes, right? We want to put heroes on a pedestal
Oh, yeah.
as if they are kind of deified. And we see this like with the founding fathers and like because we're about to hit the 250th anniversary, right? And it's
Oh, yeah.
and it's the 4th of July coming this week actually. And it's I remember reading Jefferson's notes on the state of Virginia for the first time.
Okay.
Have you ever read that one?
I haven't, no.
If you want to understand who Jefferson actually was as a person, that's what to read.
That makes sense.
He is the most bigoted, asshole-ish, sexist person that I've ever read, maybe.
Like, sure, that makes sense.
He is awful. He is awful. He says awful things about Native Americans. He says vile things about black people. He talks about like his rights to like he doesn't say it directly, but he talks about his rights to violate his own slaves sexually.
Sure. Well, we know that he did that.
And we know he did because
prolifically.
I mean, he has a huge amount of people who are descended directly from him, who are black because he raped his slaves so many times.
Mm.
Sally Hemings, I think he had like a half dozen children by Sally Hemings alone, and God knows how many of the other.
Sure.
She was like a child when he started that too. So
yeah.
He just has no end of vitriol for poor white people too. I mean, Benjamin Franklin's the same way. Yet at the same time, these are people who are important founders of the nation, and it's like we uphold them as mythological characters, but it's so important to remember that they were humans, and those particular individuals were elites in their society.
Yeah.
And so we need to view them as a complex whole being. And I think we need to do that. We have this. I think this also speaks to, and we've talked about this before. The whole thing about our social media era is that we know everything about about the celebrities out there.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate it
because they all suck.
Yeah,
we all suck. Every human is flawed and messed up, and every human has like parts of themselves that are at least embarrassing, if all not right, like predatory. Like
sure,
it's just.
I think about some stuff I did in high school, and turns my stomach.
Right. I mean, we were raised on a lot of the toxic masculinity, and there was no challenge to our ideas. And, like, I remember listening to Howard Stern talk about, and not quite knowing what to think. I didn't fully agree with this statement, but I remember other males of my generation did the whole Columbine thing. He says, like, why did they just kill the girls? They should go in and just rape a few of them before they should. Howard Stern fucking said that, and I remember thinking that's kind of gross even then. But there were so many teenage boys around me who was like, yeah, he's right. If they're gonna die, what's the difference anyway? And you're just like, so not just murder, but torture.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of shit that, locker room talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Grab him by the pussy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Got it.
So it's everywhere. It's pervasive, and I think the problem ultimately is that like we don't hold our heroes accountable. You can accept that someone had a good idea and also accept that they were not a good person.
Yeah. I think it's really important to do that. I know that we've been having this conversation kind of ongoing for like 10 years or so, just in the culture about like, God, I hate to even say the word anymore, canceling people. And whether or not that like is a worthwhile endeavor. I am of the opinion that like artists are probably inherently bad people because they spend so much time thinking about themselves and their own feelings, and that's what it takes to create art, but that's also what it takes to be a narcissist. So we should probably just expect, if we enjoy someone's art, that we would find them probably an objectionable person to be around.
Yeah. Or I think also too, a lot of art comes from trauma.
Yes.
So even if they're not a narcissist, it's some art. I think there's definitely a class of artists that are narcissists, and then there's a class of artists that are so deeply traumatized that they're essentially not really that functional of a human being.
Okay, I can accept that.
Right, that they're an asshole.
I think there's
probably difficult.
I think it's probably a lot of both. Actually,
there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't consider
what
myself.
What I'm saying is that you're a terrible person.
Yeah, no, I don't consider myself a great person. I try to work on myself all the time, and I think that's, like,
that's literally the best you can do.
That's the best you can do. Therapy, meditation, reflection, reading lots of books to try to understand. But I don't consider myself a good person. Like, I'm complicated. I've done things that I regret.
Yeah.
There's people who hate my guts for good reason.
Well, and I think we all exist. I think that's probably true of everybody.
Yeah, it is.
But I also think that it can be very uncomfortable if you know about specific crimes that an artist that you enjoy has committed, to engage with that art in a neutral, like, just pure enjoyment kind of way.
My wake up moment for this whole thing was Bill Cosby.
Dude,
because I grew up listening to Bill Cosby records on vinyl because I thought he was hilarious. I watched the Fat Albert show.
Oh God, that all on its own is very like, oof. I don't even know what to say about Fat Albert at this point.
I know, right? And I grew up in Philadelphia, literally in the area they're talking about, watching the Cosby Show, like all of this other stuff, and then suddenly, I mean, like, there's levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't listen to Bill Cosby without thinking about what he did anymore.
Yeah, like David Bowie, for instance, like, had a relationship with a minor when he was 19. She was 16, he was 19, 20. That's, in the 1960s, like...
Through most of human history, that's really not unusual.
That's not unusual, but, like, Bill Cosby made a practice of roofing women he wanted to rape and then doing that.
Yeah.
Like,
that's different.
It's and he had it like systematized and shit like that.
Know.
Like with people that he employed to help him do that.
Yeah.
Kind of different things. They're like, one is just like, oh, I don't like it. The other one is that guy should be in jail forever.
Right. And similarly, Gandhi versus Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez raped people. Oh, not Gandhi. Martin Luther King.
Okay, yeah. Martin Luther King definitely, like, to be honest, I'm not even sure I disapprove of sex work. Like, as far as that goes.
But it's all consensual.
Exactly.
Right? That's different than what Cesar Chavez did.
It's transactional, but Cesar Chavez was a serial rapist. Kind of like Bill Cosby.
Right.
So, but... While Bill Cosby made me laugh as a child, and I guess he probably did a lot for, like, black representation on TV.
Yeah.
From, like, I Spy all the way through the second Cosby Show.
And he did a lot to positively move the ball and race relations.
Yeah.
He did. Fuck, man.
Dude. So evil, though. Like,
right. That's evil at that point, yeah.
So, I think what I'm saying is, like, the best we can hope for is, like, some, like, minor, like, maybe, like, that wasn't a great relationship for you to be in at that time, although that's like the best we can hope for with our artists. Like, they could also be you know, a Michael Jackson, like a once in a generation talent whose music, whenever it comes on, makes me happy.
Yeah.
But then inevitably I have to think about like how sad his life was.
Yeah.
And then
his life was
the effect that he had on other people.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is also really hard with the Michael Jackson like character because, I mean, there are stories that he basically, his father sent him off with a bunch of businessmen and would come back and he'd be sick and like they obviously raped him.
Yep.
And so it's like at that point, and he's going through this when he's like a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Like your sexuality is probably so messed up that everything else is normalized for him.
It's fuckity fucked, man.
And it's just like it's unresolved trauma. And it's like, and that's
his best friend was also a child actor, you know,
right.
Like, Macaulay Culkin swears up and down that Michael Jackson never did anything to him, and I guess all we can do is take his word for it at that point. It still indicates that like he was probably emotionally stunted at like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Like development level for his whole life.
Yeah, and
which is wild to think about when you think about the art that he created too. It's fucking crazy.
And this actually leads me to like a whole other point that I've been thinking a lot about lately, because we've talked about trauma before on this show because there's been a lot of discussion of those things across literature.
Yeah.
I think that we cannot successfully build good societies until we have trauma, we have means for trauma to be regularly dealt with. And like, I'm going to overgeneralize here for a second. Women have much more avenues to deal with their trauma than men do. It's changing for the better, but like, in general, it's always been more acceptable for women to talk about their emotions, at least in our current culture, let's say. And
like the last 100 years.
The last 100 years or so. Okay. So they've had more opportunities to deal with their trauma, at least amongst other women, even if they couldn't challenge the system.
Okay.
So they've had more opportunities, whereas men have been, at least since John Wayne times, have been told to push it down deep.
Oh, John Wayne, fuck that. Sidebar, John Wayne, fuck that guy.
Yeah, he was
awful. Draft dodging motherfucker.
Yeah, coward in every sense of the word.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, there's nothing that
I can't say one good thing about that dude.
And I don't really, what did he really offer the art world? Not much.
The shoes is good, but you know.
That's
about it.
But anyway, my point being, and that's a generalization, right?
Yeah.
There's situations where there were some men with access to things to deal with their trauma, and situations where some women, lots of women, were not able to deal with their trauma. And definitely, we're not talking about justice here. We're talking about trauma, because processing the experience.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you think there was more opportunities for women. Not much still, but there's more than there have been for men, at least, I want to say at least since the 1950s.
Sure, okay.
But I think to successfully resist a lot of these systems of oppression, we have to deal with trauma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that, like, oppressors will do is use your trauma against you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's definitely been the strategy of, like, manipulation that the Republican Party's been using.
Yeah.
I mean, basically since, you know, John Wayne times, as you put it.
Well, since Bacon's Rebellion, right? If you're
Sure.
poor and white and you've gone through these terrible experiences, what are these other people complaining about? Well, they don't have anything to complain about.
Absolutely.
You are oppressed too.
Yeah,
You've had a hard time too. And it's not entirely wrong, but it's like
every time we're asking ourselves, why does nothing stick to Trump? They keep on, the media will keep on going back to like, well, you gotta consider the poor whites.
Mm-hmm.
You have to consider, that's the reason that you know, he keeps on getting elected, because he speaks to the poor whites. And it's like, no, man, it's just because like grievances are being captured and manipulated by this fucking system that we got.
Right, because poor white people do experience oppression. But
yeah,
the problem is that they convince them to go to culture wars instead of dismantling the structure of power.
Absolutely.
So, another good quote. Sam says, Even a mirror will not show you yourself if you do not wish to see it."
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's the narcissism right there. But this was the big quote that I was talking about with the whole the curse of the Buddha, right? A man is a thing of many divisions. His intellect wars with his emotions, his will with his desires. His ideas are at odds with the environment, and he follows them. He knows, and if he follows them, he knows keenly the loss of that which is old. But if he does not follow them, he feels the pain of having forsaken a new and noble dream. Whatever he does represents a gain and a loss, an arrival and a departure. Always he mourns that is what is gone, and fears some part of that which is new. And this is the experience that the Rakasha have forgotten. If they knew it before, they had forgotten. And he's speaking to Teraga about this, and he's still possessed for a while longer, right. but it's kind of lingering. But I think what I love most about this book is his ability to capture the nuance and complexity of the human experience in a very way that says, this is what life is like, but here's what we can do better.
Oh, I like that.
So, I wrote that this is the best line that encapsulates both the spirit of change and the making up to the nature of the world and waking up to the nature of the world around you. God, my
handwriting was terrible. Man.
My handwriting. Look at my handwriting.
Oh, it is terrible. Not mine was bad.
No, it's pretty bad. And for me personally, I was thinking about this book a lot because I read this book. I'm pretty sure it was 2015 the last time I looked it up. It was 2015 because I keep everything records in my Goodreads or whatever. And so I read it in 2015, and I had just started practicing Buddhism officially, and I had just gotten out of grad school with anthropology, and this book really appealed to me, and I don't think I quite had it in me to name it yet. But it really, both anthropology and Eastern philosophy more generally, not necessarily just Buddhism, because I spent a lot of my time studying Chinese philosophy and Hindu philosophy and various other things. It really made me aware of like these endless complexities of the external world and kind of the nature of power at the same time. Whereas like Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and other philosophies, they don't really necessarily confront power, much like Christianity isn't really confronting power.
Yeah.
But they do confront really Western philosophy and its assumptions very deeply, and having grown up steeped in Western philosophy and grown up Catholic, that offered me a series of questions. And then the anthropology side also gave me this kind of critique of power systems to see in a way like combining both of these kind of manifest in this book in a lot of ways for me. Yeah. It's like, how do you not just resist the terrible walls that we create internally, but the oppression that we experience externally?
Ooh, that's deep, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. Christianity is all about like appeasing power, because you're supposed to spend all of your time thanking God for just like existing and praying to God for like, treats or whatever, like give me this promotion or like, hey, God, like, having faith in something that is, ostensibly very powerful, but also might not exist at all because it's unseen. There's no proof of God's, power, will, or anything like that, unless you just choose to believe in it hard enough that you persuade yourself that it's real.
Right.
Well, and if you exist in a Christian nation at any point before like liberation movements happened, the state is all embroiled in the Christianity and acting as a proxy, like I'm a king because God said so.
Yeah.
Kind of situation.
Divine right.
And all of my little ministers down there are like in charge of basically like the fiefdoms and stuff like that. And they're also ostensibly representatives of a representative of God,
Right.
So.
Right. Well, if you have to think about where did Christianity finally gain a foothold in terms of power, and that's the Roman Empire with Emperor Constantine, right? So of course that ideology of power is going to get reflected into the state apparatus of the religion.
Right.
Before that, Christianity was incredibly diverse.
Mhm.
There were lots of versions of Christianity, some that would be considered extremely blasphemous today.
Okay.
There was
say more about that.
Well, there's like God the Mother, that kind of thing, which actually has had a little bit of an interesting resurgence. That how could you give birth to a divine entity if you yourself were not divine? And so the divine feminine was a key part of this, with Mary being the Godhead.
Oh.
There was also if I remember correctly, there was a mixture of the Trinity was the Father, Son, Holy Spirit were actually three separate deities, but then there was a monotheistic faction, and kind of the compromise in the Council of Nicaea, and I might be misremembering this a little bit, but if I remember correctly, the compromise of the Council of Nicaea was those were the two most powerful factions in early Christianity, so that's how you get the 3-in-1 concept.
Okay.
Right.
I definitely always like if you want to annoy a Christian, especially like a Catholic, just talk about how it's not monotheistic. It's
in the early days there was several branches of early Christianity that were not monotheistic. Yeah. Then there was like the Gnostics, which is like, you know, the Gospel of Thomas, which is very kind of mystical, and it's all about like Jesus wasn't a god. Jesus shows us how to reconnect with the divine thing, which is not nameless.
A demigod, because you can like, you know, transmogrify shit, you know.
Right, but that was because Jesus understood the true nature of the universe.
Sure,
that was the idea.
Control the electromagnetic spectrum.
Sam.
Yeah.
But that was the idea. So and there's a lot more. I really encourage anyone who's interested. Like the early Christianity was extremely diverse, and we also know this from the Bible itself without even looking at any history or non-canonical stuff, because of all the letters of Paul, they're all debates on what belongs in Christianity and what doesn't.
Okay.
It's literally within the Bible itself. There's like people writing in and be like, "Yo, Paul, what does this mean? Should we be doing this?" Like the question of circumcision is put into question, right?
Okay.
So in the early church days, there is a lot of debate about what it means to be a Christian and who is this Christ figure. It doesn't really truly become monotheistic until it merges with Constantine's empire.
Okay, what year approximately is that?
347.
Hundreds of years. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's
all right.
It's the middle of the 4th century is the first council of Nicaea, which is where they kind of deliberate. I don't remember the exact date.
No, dude, you know. No, don't worry about it.
But it's the middle of the 4th century. I think it's 347.
Okay.
But you know, there's multiple councils of Nicaea, so this goes on for a while, and they intentionally didn't invite some people, some groups who were more considered fringe to them or didn't have enough political power were not really invited to the discussion.
Of course
This is the only thing that's right about the Da Vinci Code. That's the only thing.
Oh shit! I don't know anything about the Da Vinci Code.
And the rest of it is all conspiracy theory.
I skipped that whole situation when it happens.
They were early 2000s Indiana Jones.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction shit.
It's like classic 1930s adventure.
Yeah.
You know, mucking up archaeology and giving more people reasons to misunderstand archaeology. So, let's see. There was one other thing. You have any kind of thoughts or?
I have to say, I really enjoyed this. I loved Sam as a character. I did think he was so complex, so morally gray, so just like entertaining to like. I love how it was presented as like a sequence, but all of the different chapters, they felt like a story you would be told about the Buddha.
They're the parables.
Yeah, they were parables that were strung together very, like in a very interesting and engaging narrative way.
Yeah,
and they all had like a strong theme. You know, basically it's like Sam and one major side character in each chapter, which I really enjoyed. And it made me want to reread Siddhartha. So, guess what we're doing later, guys?
Well, and Ryle is an interesting story too about a man who comes to try to kill the Buddha and then is enlightened. That's a real Buddhist story.
I'm not surprised at all because they felt like that. It felt. I guess what I'm saying is I really enjoyed the authenticity, which the Buddhism, and the Hinduism was presented in this fantastical sci-fi situation. I think I'm definitely going to read more of this guy's works, although apparently they're impossible to find.
I got a couple of hard copies.
Yeah, catch me combing the stacks down on like the Broadway Book Mall and shit like that.
Yeah. Those are the places where you find good classic sci-fi literature that's out of print.
Yeah,
and it's amazing sometimes that like I think even the bookstore owners don't realize what they have. Like you can buy Zelazny books on eBay for hundreds of dollars. So I have a couple. And
yeah.
I'm holding on to those things till I die.
Absolutely.
Like most of the time when I buy physical copies of books, if someone comes over to my house and they say, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting book," I go, "Here, it's yours." But there's a couple of books I'm like, these are really hard to find.
You can't have this one.
My final thoughts on this is it's kind of the whole story is like a metaphor for freedom. You can't really kill the idea of liberty. You can scatter it, you can delay it, but no matter what power you harness, no matter what systems you create, our own kind of inherent curiosity and desire for freedom. I do believe freedom is a desire that in all of us to experience the world through the lens that we want to experience. You can't kill those, no matter how powerful your technology.
Truly.
And I think the whole AI backlash we're seeing lately is really a telling tale of like they can create all the best bells and whistles in the world, the coolest products and ideas, but in the end, what we really want is our freedom and our ability to be ourselves and explore our own potential. Like that's, and I think that this book was it because really, when you get to the final chapter, like Sam doesn't matter that much. That in the period that he's been disincorporated into the magnetosphere has been this period of incredible growth of the rebellion. It's almost a kind of a sociological story. You had one person kind of spearheading this thing, but all he was really doing was aligning the interests of all these different groups. It's kind of like Andor in a way, right? Like where you have Luthen who is kind of organizing everything as a chessboard, but like, yeah, Luthen is important, and the rebellion may not have happened the same way without him, but all those people were already rising up.
They were all doing that already. You're right. Absolutely.
So I think this kind of captures this.
Yeah. Reminds me of Rebels too.
Yeah, Rebels is the same thing.
Because they're motivated by their own desire to liberate Lothal, not necessarily to overthrow the Empire.
Yeah.
But then they get brought into a broader structure when it's appropriate.
Right, and then at the Battle of Keenset, which is the battle where the final battle before Sam gets basically discorporated into the atmosphere, it's kind of like this Black Death moment that Europe had, where the systems are shattered and they will never come back the same way. And then, of course, across a couple of generations, you see these radical shifts in ideas and approaches. So it's the destruction. And I think maybe this is optimistic. I think social media is our Black Death moment. I think that even though they have tried to use it to make algorithms and everything, we have brought to light questions and ideas through the internet, through these interactive platforms that have really upended the system, and that's why we have so much backlash right now.
Absolutely. We know, and we also know that every celebrity's a fucking sicko.
Yeah. We know, and every person in power is
a fucking pervert.
Maybe not every, but let's say 99%. I mean, there's always people like Keanu Reeves.
I don't want to know more about Keanu Reeves.
I did look
because he seems great, and that tells me that I should be suspicious.
He was a complicated person earlier, but then he had a series of tragedy where first he lost his kid to death, then he lost his wife to death like a year later, and then he went through like this deep depression, and he actually became mostly Buddhist from what I understand,
Okay.
and then has since then like really reconfigured his way of viewing the world. And he's generally, at least in public, he's a very kind person. But hope to God he does not end up with some sort of scandal.
I mean, you know what? I have to imagine he will eventually have a scandal, but just because he's a celebrity, you know,
Well, you don't
like,
become an actor if you're
fucking-
healthy anyway.
you know, not Zen. It's the other radical thinker that I learned about in high school that I love. No, Chomsky.
Oh,
Even Chomsky got fucking wrapped up in the whole
He did.
Epstein.
he did, but the
situation, you
more
know?
that's coming out about that, the more complicated it seems.
Okay.
Like I was reading more recently about some of the other people who were around him and said like, yeah, he clearly should not have been hanging out with Epstein and talking to him, but they're not really sure if they knew to the extent of that. That's the problem with the whole thing.
It all happened after Epstein had already been tried for his crimes.
Well,
Like-
I mean, Chomsky has other problems, not just that. I mean, Chomsky, for example, has racist quotes about the Piraha tribe.
Of course.
I mean, because they disproved his universal grammar stuff.
sure.
Chomsky's far from perfect, but I think the whole Epstein thing is, I mean, there's people who appear, and who was it the other day I was reading about, who appeared 19 times in the Epstein files, and I looked it up, and I was like,
Just because people were talking
they
about
were
him.
talking about it in an email that
yeah.
didn't even necessarily have anything to
No,
do
no,
with
Chomsky like was basically accepting some patronage from Epstein.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. And that's what I'm talking about. And it's like, I mean, Chomsky, you described in one of your seminal works everything that Epstein is doing right now to get you on his side.
I know.
Bro.
I know.
It's not the fact that he was like connected with Epstein, it's that he was like making himself look like a fucking chump for falling for the power, you know? The tools, the structures of power.
Yeah.
That's the embarrassing part.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. I mean, just don't idolize people, guys.
No,
And,
don't hero worship.
Don't.
Just accept that, like, if so, just because someone has good ideas doesn't mean that they're necessarily a great person.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you'd be like, some people have terrible ideas and they're a better person than the person with good ideas.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people I like personally whose ideas are stupid as shit.
Yeah.
You know.
You're like an ass. Like, your ideas are terrible, but you are a quality human being for the most part. So, and I also think that sometimes good ideas come out of unusual thinking, and unusual thinking comes out of trauma or mental health issues, or like maybe doing things like you shouldn't have. Like, there's a lot of soldiers who come out of war and they have really good ideas because they did terrible things during the war.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's, I think the core thing is here is it's to separate the art from the person, separate the ideas from the person. Like, once an idea is out into the world, it doesn't belong to a single person anymore, right? So, you know, the question, the test of a good idea is, what does it do to society, not who created it. Like, capitalism is a great example. What does capitalism do? Or communism. What does communism do when you implement it at large scale?
Yeah.
Both those systems are atrocious.
They truly are.
They have done terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
So then that means we need better ideas. So a good idea is one that lives well. And I don't think any ideas are universal too. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, we have this problem where we want to believe that something is either monocausal, like comes from one source, or was it Kim Stanley Robinson calls that, I think we used that word before, monocausal taxophilia. I love that word, right? The love of singular causes.
Absolutely. Oh God, we're obsessed with that.
Yeah. So we're obsessed with that. And so, you know, things that either come from one cause and not complexity, or all ideas fit every group. And if you want hardcore proof that there is no one-size-all-fits solution to anything, read about the history of federal policy in Native Americans. Because even when people in Washington were legitimately trying to improve Native American situations, such as like in the 1934 Indian Reorganization Act that really did seek to give funding and or reorganization to Native Americans, it was an utter failure and disaster.
Yeah.
So because they tried to apply the same policies and ideas to everyone. Not everyone wants the same things. Not every culture has the same values and ideas, and that's good. We should think of that as an evolutionary adaptation, because if one society destroys itself, there are other ideas out there to persist and keep going and try new things.
Yeah, just give them their land back, man.
Yeah, give them their land back. Yeah, you give everybody what they need to survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And
universal basic income. I think that would be a pretty good universal.
That would be. There are places maybe it wouldn't work though. Mm-hmm. There's a interesting. What's his name? God, what was the guy's name who won the Nobel Prize in 2004 for microlending?
Oh.
Do you remember that?
No. I mean, I remember microlending being a hot thing for a moment.
It was a really hot thing, and it worked extremely well in very specific circumstances, and the moment they expanded the model, it blew up.
That sounds right.
I think universal basic income should not be. I think the problem is if it's a cash payout. I think the guarantee should be access to food, education, healthcare, and housing.
I think it's got to be cash, because literally, if you start tying it to anything specific, if it's like food, then you're gonna get the whole food stamp problem where is that the food that you really want? Mm-hmm. Oh man, that doesn't seem like the food that I find virtuous. You start.
There's that.
If it's cash, then people can just do with it what they wish.
The problem with the cash, though, is then if people just raise, and you see when landlords raise their rents when they.
Well, you also have to stop them from doing it.
So right, so you have to figure out a system that could counter that stuff where which I don't know. I think we should just get off fiat currency in general.
Well, yeah, I want to live in the Federation too, Michael.
Yeah, I think
we don't have warp technology yet, sir.
The more I read about this, like reading about when capitalism really becomes powerful is not the Industrial Revolution. It's the 16th century at the end when silver becomes plentiful enough because of the colonization and extraction of South America, where the silver supplies were like far way beyond anything anyone had ever seen, and they massively dumped silver into the world. So silver becomes freely circulated in a way that no mineral had ever had before, and you finally get like the grasp of fiat currency.
Sure.
That is when empires become extractive in a way they had never been before.
Okay.
Where the colonial systems and genocide had ramped up in a way it had never had before.
All I'm saying, man, is that when we were getting those payouts during the lockdown,
I agree.
We basically had a pilot program, a nationwide pilot program in universal basic income, and every metric improved.
I know. And then they cut it off, and then I know, and then there'll be some economists who say, well, that drove to inflation. And I was like,
it actually didn't.
It didn't. There's no evidence for that. And what we want to talk about shrinkflation, for example, that these companies, they were profiteering. They were taking advantage of a situation, and they knew they could get away with rising prices because they knew, people have a little bit more money. So like the video game industry, suddenly it was $59.99 for a new video game. Now it's like fucking $80 for a video game.
It's $69, yeah. It's $69.99.
Well, all the new ones are $79.99.
That shit, man.
But
I want that new God of War game so bad, though.
I was just thinking because one of my kids was like, GTA 6 is finally coming out, and I was like, and how much is it? It's like $89.99.
Of course it is. That shit's been in development for 20 years now.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think a lot of, but I think the point is though is that if you create any setup, and even universal basic income, then you have to have systems to be monitoring and watching and improving it to see if there is problems in some areas, why it's not working, what's causing
that we should be regulating capitalism?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that. That sounds like commie talk. No, obviously we gotta regulate it, you guys. We can't just have a magic bullet. All I'm saying is universal basic income is really the only way for us to move forward. If we want people to participate in commerce in a post-industrial society, we are going to have to supplement that somehow.
Well, especially if robots are doing a lot.
That's
of
what I'm
work.
saying. If we want to like do AI and automation and all of that shit, if we want to have robots, and we also want to have capitalism or commerce in general in the future, we are just gonna have to give people money because that people deserve to like have, you know, like comfort and things.
They do.
Know?
They do.
And not, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, everybody I know works 2 jobs right now. It's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Like nobody has time to do anything, like, let alone like have a family, like procreate and shit like that, you know? Once you have a white collar job, you can't afford a house and kids. So the government's just got to give us money because they can do that. That's literally within their power to do.
I think that's our bridge. I think universal basic income is our bridge, and then over the next couple generations, we get rid of capitalism altogether.
Well, I
love
that.
That's the goal.
But that's like baked into the soul of America, though, man. You can't get rid of capitalism. Like, I would love it if we did. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it's not going to happen.
Is it the soul? I don't know.
I mean, the soul of America is fucking rotten, dude. It's capitalism, Protestantism, and genocide. That's what this nation's founded on.
Well, sure, certainly it's founded on that. I do think that there's opportunity to take, whether or not the founding fathers really meant their words that all men are created equal is up for question. But that spirit and that constant expansion of rights and the people who have fought for all this stuff, I actually think that's more of the spirit of this country.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, man, because that was a pretty depressing way to end this episode right before the 4th of July.
Right? No, I am a leftist, and I know this might be controversial, fellow leftist. I love this country.
Okay.
I do, because I do think that at its heart, I think we can do incredible things. I still think that, despite the fact that, you know, capitalism is shit all over my entire life.
Yeah.
Multiple times. But I don't give up. I think to give up, I think to fall into apathy and cowardice and just say, fuck it, I think that's just what those in power want. I think our goal is to, like, you know, I mean, why do we do this show except to think about ideas to push back against that stuff? Like,
absolutely.
And you know, I mean, I suppose there is a world in which people like us can be arrested for having a show like this in the future if things keep going the way they're going, but I don't think they are. I think we're fighting back, and I think Minnesota was the turning point.
Okay.
I think
I would love it if that was the case.
I think Minnesota's a turning point, and now, like, look what happened with all the Democratic Socialists who are getting elected.
Yeah, like primarying the old fucking Democrats.
They're primarying the old guard, and the old guard is freaking out. And I think, like, you saw this, like, in the 1930s after the horrors of the First World War and the Great Depression. We could have gone fascist, and instead we went FDR.
True. Yeah.
So I would like to leave with that.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Our next couple episodes, House on the Cerulean Sea.
Yeah.
We will also be doing Their Eyes Are Watching God.
Yes.
And then after that, we'll be doing Hermann Hesse's classic novel, Siddhartha.
Yeah.
Because after reading this, Matt was like, we should just read Siddhartha.
Yeah.
So those are our next 3, and then we're still kind of weighing in. If you guys all have ideas about specific books we should cover, please do offer your suggestions.
Someone mentioned Dickens, and I just gotta say, you guys, I love that. I fucking love Charles Dickens. Also, problematic dude. I get that, but really good writer, and you know, pro-labor. So that's fucking sick for 1860. That guy's way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But most of his books are really fucking long.
Like 1,000 pages.
And we have 3 weeks to read a novel and then come up with thoughts about the novel. Which doesn't seem like a lot all on its own, but we also have lives and stuff like that.
Well, and like for this episode, I reread a whole bunch of Hindu mythology, for example.
Yeah, we always get caught up and like want to like kind of dive into the background of the author or like the political circumstances or whatever. I do think that potentially we could probably swing A Tale of Two Cities. I think that would thematically be very consistent with what we're talking about here. And it's also one of his shorter novels. It's like maybe 400 pages.
I have not
And I think
read it.
we were talking a little bit when we started the show, like a year and a half ago or something like that. Crazy. That 400 would be about the maximum length. We've broken that rule a couple times.
Several.
Babel. Oof, what a good book. What a long book.
700-page book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great read, though.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah,
Dickens isn't off the table.
Yeah.
I love that idea, and I think that's one that we could that would fit right in there. I don't think we're repeating authors too much too. So if we did one,
we're trying
that
to
would probably
not.
be it for a while.
Yeah,
but
yeah. We're trying to really give lots of diverse thinkers a chance.
Mhm.
I mean, we both have talked about reading more R.F. Kuhn because Babel was so good, but we're
Yeah.
like we should wait.
Yeah, we're definitely never doing sequels again.
Yeah,
Apparently the sequel to Lovecraft Country was also a bit of a letdown. So
it's just okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I
But
read it
just okay after
after a really good book. It's
yeah,
hard.
like a 9 or 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like that sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, because it's never mind. So probably never doing sequels. Maybe doing a second book. I feel like Stephen Graham Jones.
I know.
Definitely want to read another one of
I
his.
know him too.
But we'd have to kick it probably a couple years down the road. So.
Yeah. We just want to give lots of diverse voices a chance
Yeah.
and explore ideas we hadn't considered. And
Mhm.
I mean, we like reading a Stephen Graham Jones book is wonderful and amazing, and we definitely probably will read another one in another year or two. But like it also is like his ideas are going to be his ideas through all of his fiction.
That's true. It's gonna be a little bit more repetitive than diversifying. If you keep on reading the same author over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I've read almost every Stephen King book, and at this point, I can almost guess what he's going to do next.
Oh yeah, you are a student of Stephen King for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's it for this episode of Resistance Reads. We'll see you all in 3 weeks.
Sláinte mhath, guys. All right. We ended up having a couple people by the end of it. It started off with no one.